Hello and welcome to week 8 of How to Teach at Buddha Dharma University. And this week we have a very involved topic called the tough questions. So I am going to try to make this video as short as possible because there's a lot of work involved for you outside of this lecture. I will do my best, but I can't make promises. I have a lot of notes to get through, so I really hope that I don't keep you too long, but this is an important topic, so I hope that you will bear with me. I really do think that you will find this valuable. So we are priests or priests in training, and there are very many ways in which we help the people around us. Our jobs is to save all beings, of course. And in our learning groups, etc., this is what we strive for. So it's also, however, very important to remember what our limitations are. It's easy to get caught up in some of the questions that people ask or might ask us, and they might sometimes be a little bit unexpected, though they probably shouldn't be, really. And we get asked some questions, or we might receive comments that indicate that an individual is starting to think of us as their therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, as something other than a spiritual guide. It is really important to remember that we are none of those things. Anything that requires a license in order to be able to practice, we are not qualified to do. And it's a fine line sometimes, but it is an important one to recognize and to emphasize and to recognize and to express to those we help. It would be irresponsible of me to try to act in any way that resembles a counselor, a therapist, or anything else. And it would ultimately end up causing harm, both to the individual who is seeking help and also to myself, my reputation. It is very important to know where the lines are and to hold those lines. So, this brings us to correct situation, relationship, function. That is part of the learning, the teachings that we receive in our lineage. Seung Sunim often mentions correct situation, relationship, function, and it is always important to keep that in mind as we work with people in our learning groups. It is a very big responsibility that we hold when we are guiding someone's spiritual and personal growth and journey. So we want to definitely just make sure that we are holding those boundaries, those limitations, those delineations to where they need to be. So that means that we have to really make sure that we are acting only within the limits of the capacities for which we have actual training. So if you happen to be a therapist and a counselor and a psychiatrist, wonderful. If you happen to have that certification and that licensure and you practice actively currently, that might be something that is, workable for you. I would leave that up to your professional judgment. But for the rest of us who are not, it's really important to be cognizant of that. If you haven't done so yet, I am going to really emphasize here that you are going to want to download the PDF materials that I have provided for you into your computer. Give it its own folder so that you can find it easily later on. They're materials that you at one point will most likely need to refer to outside of the context of this course. So I really encourage you to hold on to that material, and if you need to update them every once in a while. So common issues that arise when we are working with individuals. It's surprising how often it'll come up. Now, I personally have not led any learning groups, but I know in speaking with my guiding teacher and having him offer me his trainings that topics come up often in meditation circles. or people just come up to you and start talking to you about things. Even outside the context of being a priest, I have had friends who have come up and started talking to me about some things for which, I don't have training in how to deal with. And I feel compelled to help them, but I don't know how because I don't have the training, right? So these are some resources, some common topics that come up that you might be faced with when you are talking to your learners. So common issues that come up are addiction. So whether it's one owns addiction to alcohol, drugs, gambling, or the addiction of a loved one. Suicidal ideations, depression, anxiety, etc., domestic violence, and the mental health of LGBTQ individuals. Another big issue that might come up is learning about child abuse. And whether you learn about it through speaking with an adult learner or you witness instances of it out in the wild, going through the grocery store, maybe you witness something that shouldn't be happening to a child. Unfortunately, this is something that happens. Clergy in many states are required to report instances of child abuse, in the United States anyway. In various states within the United States, clergy often are required to report instances of child abuse. So it's important to note that each state has different requirements, different trainings, different procedures for reporting such instances. And it is important for you to know what your state is going to require of you as what we call a mandated reporter. So some of the PDFs that I have provided for you in the course content are documents that will help you find the resources to help you figure out what you would need to do should you ever bear witness to or learn about incidents of child abuse that's currently occurring to a child. So the questions in this week's quiz will offer you prompts for taking steps towards identifying your state's requirements and the resources that are available, as well as asking you to identify certain terminology that is key to your developing understanding around this topic. Now, if you're not located within the United States or its territories, you will be prompted to do some research to find out the requirements that exist in your country, in the province, state, region, etc., in which you reside. I am fortunate in that I am a public school teacher in New York State, so there are some very clear guidelines as to what I have to do as a mandated reporter in this state, a mandated reporter of child abuse in this state. So I have some built-in steps that I've gotten trained on already, and all teachers have. So whether the child is a child in my classroom or a child that I see out in the street, I am required to report if I know that child is being abused. And I have clear outlines delineated for me. I have resources built right into my school district, people that I go to who will walk me through the process and who will kind of take things over for me. So I happen to be fortunate in that regard. However, unless you are a public school teacher, you don't have that. So this is why I wanted to offer this to you so that you know what your responsibility is and you know what to do, where to go, and how to proceed should you ever bear witness to some of the unfortunate realities of what happens to children in the world. So hopefully you'll never ever have to use any of these resources, but chances are good that you will need at least some. So now you have them, and I wish you well. This concludes week 8. Next week, you have the big job of putting together your final essay, your final assignment. There will be no video, no articles to read. I am simply asking you to consider all of the information that you've received over these last 8 weeks and think about your takeaways. What's been helpful? What do you think you will use? And how will you use some of the stuff that you've learned over these last weeks? I am looking forward to seeing what you have to say.